So now looking at performance versus responsiveness, as programmers, we often talk about performance, but very often, particularly when we're building applications for devices, more important than performance is responsiveness, right? In other words, when we talk about performance, we're like, how fast is it? How much can I get done in some period of time? Right? Responsiveness is really how does it feel to the user, right? That is the application allowing the user to keep doing the things they want to do, or are they being blocked out from doing things that they want to do? And so most of what we focus on here, and honestly, in general, when you're building user-oriented applications of any sort on any platform, responsiveness is the thing that we're really interested in. So responsiveness is where we want to spend our time. And the things that we talk about throughout this course, in both this module and the upcoming modules, are really focused on responsiveness, giving the user that feeling that they're able to move forward, and we're not preventing them from doing any of the things that they want to do. Now, when it comes to Android applications, there's a pretty common architecture, right? Is that there's just kind of the fundamental things that we always have. Now, first of all, there's the application class. Now, very often we don't actually interact with that class, but that is the foundation of every Android application is a root application class. The first thing that we generally deal with is what we call the activity, right? The activity is, in effect, kind of a screen, right? It's kind of that one kind of user form that the user interacts with, right? And on that activity are a series of view-derived classes, right? And so in terms of the Android nomenclature, a view is kind of any kind of control, right? Like, so this is kind of a label here where it says status. This is another label where it says running, right? If we had a button, that would be another view-derived control. These are often referred to as widgets in Android terminology. And of course, we pretty much always have an options menu, right? That's where the user, of course, makes the choices of the things that they want to do, right? When they hit the menu key on an Android device, this is what pops up. So they're kind of the root of what we have. The thing is that, what's important behind that is that each of these applications, by default, only have a single thread. It's what we often call the main thread, right? That main thread is where all the user interactivity goes on, right? And that main thread is responsible for a lot of stuff, right? Basically, anything the activity does, right? Anything any widgets do, any of the event handlers, anything on the menus, all that stuff has to happen on that main thread. So it's important that our application not tie up that main thread. So when it comes to responsiveness, Android takes a lot of responsibility for that. It's very important to the Android platform. So much so that not only is it a guideline for us to not do much there, in other words, not spend too much time doing work on that main thread, but the operating system is really going to enforce it for us, right? Because basically, there is something called the Activity Manager and the Windows Manager, whose job it is to monitor what your main thread is doing. If your main thread is tied up for more than 5 seconds, it throws what we call an ANR error, right? An application not responding error, and basically gives the user an opportunity to kill your application. And of course, we don't want the users killing our application, so we don't want to see these ANR errors, right? So the guidelines that Google gives is that any event handler should never spend more than 200 milliseconds doing its job. In fact, the preference is no more than 100 milliseconds. In other words, not more than a tenth of a second doing its job. It doesn't take much thought to know that, even in a world of very modern, fast devices, 100 milliseconds isn't much time, particularly if you want to do anything like interact with a network or interact with the file system. And we know that as our applications get richer and more mature, things like the network interaction are things that we do a great deal. So we need to have a solution to this, right? And so the first thing we want to look at here is that let's take a look at a demo that we're going to use throughout this module that demonstrates some of the problems that we run into and gives us some of the solutions for those.